You've had Wendy's Nugs dipped in sauce, but have you had them covered in sauce? Wendy's new Saucy Nugs take the crispy and saucy nugs you love and turn them up to 11. Choose between flavors like buffalo, honey barbecue, garlic, parm, or if you're a real heat seeker, try the spicy ghost pepper. Of course, you can do spicy versions of all those other ones I mentioned too. The spicy garlic parm, unbelievable. 7 delicious ways to try the nugs you already love. Pick a flavor, grab some extra napkins, and prepare to nug like you have never nugged before. For a whole new way to nug, it's got to be Wendy's at participating U.S. Wendy's. Welcome to Andy and Ari On3, presented by Wendy's. Happy Monday. It is a picks show, and we have some fascinating games to talk about, Ari Wasserman.
You know what? That was a pretty exciting Saturday. And then I look at the schedule for this coming Saturday, and it just keeps getting better and better, Andy. I cannot wait to start envisioning next Saturday with you.
Well, and we really get into conference play now. That's what I think makes this more interesting. Is this was last week was sort of the last gasp of the non-conference games, the teams that just scheduled some easy wins. There will be obviously other non-conference games, but now they're going to be, toward the end of the season, the ACC and SEC rivalry games. Those we get into the meat of conference play, and I think we saw some really good conference play last week with Illinois and Nebraska, with Tennessee and Oklahoma, with USC and Michigan, and obviously a little bit different kind of conference play, not the conference play that we were used to. So that part, we're getting the new, but also the fact that these games do matter in the conference race. And one thing I will say, the Big 12, like that K-State getting blown out by BYU, I think that just further reinforces what we've said, that the Big 12 is going to be nuts.
You want to hear, I don't think we're going to pick this game, but you want to know what's so funny about that? Is that Baylor is now a 2-point favorite against BYU this weekend. So, like, you want to talk about the
did they not watch the games in Vegas?
Yeah, I don't know. The Big 12 is going to be crazy.
It is. But that's the thing. We don't know. And that Colorado game, we are going to pick the Colorado game, and that line moved 2 points after it came out and not in the direction I thought it was going to move. So it is going to be a very, very interesting week. And we probably should just get started because we got a lot of games to hit. We're going to hit 10 games today. That's not all the ones we're going to pick. We're going to throw some bonus pick segments at you later in the week as well, because there's just that many good games. A little bit of news first. Bad news, unfortunately. Harold Perkins Jr., the LSU linebacker, is out for the season. We saw him go off during the UCLA game, and you saw he had the towel over his head. It looked bad. It looked like he was getting very bad news, and that is indeed the case. So LSU without probably its best defensive playmaker for the rest of the season, and that's just a tough one. We're going to see more like this, Ari, but that with Harold Perkins, it's always like, okay, what happens with him? How are they going to use him? Now a defense that we're not sure is all that great is further deteriorated.
I mean, I feel bad for the kid because, like, in his freshman year, we thought we were looking at like the next great college football defensive player. You know what I mean? Like, it was like looked like it was like going to be our next star of the sport. And then year 2 went a little off the rails in terms of the way they schemed him up, and then now he's injured. It just, his potential is off into the galaxy somewhere, and I just am upset that we're not going to be able to see it this year. But my hope for him is that he'll get back healthy and have a really good year next year.
Well, but does he have a good year in college or the NFL next year?
Well, we might be able to see him in the NFL next year. I don't know what the calculus there is, Andy, and this will be interesting in terms of like the NIL era and all this stuff. If like LSU could make it worth it for him to come back, sell him, hey, we'll take care of you here, come have a great year, and then get drafted higher the year after when you become the star that you're supposed to be in the sport, or if he just goes to the NFL. That's going to be an interesting thing to track.
Or does somebody come in and say, here's how we're going to use you, and we're going to use you in a way that shows you the best.
Yeah, and it might not
somebody
even be
else
an LSU.
could do that in college.
Exactly. Yeah, that's the pro sportsification of college football might be like the perfect, experiment with this exact case right here.
Well, and that's the thing. I'm working on a column right now that'll come out on On3 later today, and hopefully we'll talk about it tomorrow. I would like to discuss it in depth with you tomorrow, not while trying to pick games, but it's about the quarterback market and how weird the quarterback market is, because I think you and I asked ourselves the same questions on Saturday night. We're watching Oklahoma play, and we're like, well, what would this look like if Dillon Gabriel was the quarterback? And then I'm watching K-State play and get destroyed, and I'm like, well, what would this look like if Will Howard was still the quarterback? And it's easy to say that, oh, Brent Venables just picked Jackson Arnold over Dillon Gabriel. That's not exactly what happened. It's more complicated than that. And the quarterback market is super complex, because while everything else has kind of mimicked the NFL, that one hasn't, because college people, I say coaches and fans, can't get the 5-star, this guy's a 5-star, out of their heads.
And reporters too.
And
also can't get the 5-star thing out of their head. Yeah, it is like really interesting to see the movements of these quarterbacks, Andy. And then if one's excelling at the new place or the person at the old place is excelling, it's going to be a never-ending game of would've, should've, could've, and it's like, I was watching NFL games on Sunday during my drive back from Norman, and you see like Andy Dalton.
Not while driving, of course. You were listening to the audio.
Listening, and then glancing sometimes. But Andy Dalton now is like leading the Panthers to like 36 points, and Bryce Young isn't playing, and then Justin Fields is 3-0 after the Bears gave up on him, and then Caleb Williams is having the quarterback position is such a complex position that like you wonder like, well, what would have K-State looked like this year if Will Howard was their quarterback? And the answer to that question, Andy, is they could have still gotten their butts kicked. You know what I mean? Because when teams take new players, or they're put in positions or different offenses with different pieces, like they're going to excel at new places when they weren't given the opportunity to do so for a various amount of reasons at the place that they were at before. So like it is really tough for Oklahoma, though, specifically because you saw Dillon Gabriel, you knew what it was. And I think we're pretty certain that the ceiling or the floor of what he would have played like in the Tennessee game on Saturday was higher. But are we sure that Dillon Gabriel's ceiling isn't higher than Jackson Arnold's? Like, that's the discussion that you're having as a coach, right? Like, it's not just who's going to be the best in the first 4 games of the season next year, but who's going to be a star here? Who are we going to be able to have for longer periods? You also have to take into account how much eligibility a player has left. You could have brought back Dillon Gabriel, and that would have made sense because he was better, and maybe Oklahoma would have either won or been more competitive with Tennessee on Saturday. But maybe the last thing on earth Oklahoma wanted to do was see Jackson Arnold go play somewhere else, because they're thinking about their year 2, year 3. And in the portal era, we're always it's not as easy to have a down year and get away with it. So, it's not just how are we going to be good this year? It's how are we going to be good in year 2, year 3, year 4? And sometimes you have to go. I mean, I don't know, if you were a coach, would you pick the person who was moderately less ready right now, but has more years of eligibility and a higher ceiling? Or would you pick the guy that can make you as good as possible in the following year? Like, it's a really interesting discussion. I'm
actually trying to reason that out as I finish writing this column when we finish the show. I'm not sure where I fall on it yet. I will say there's something I've been saying the last few years to friends of mine who might have gone to the same school that I went to, who continually freak out because a freshman quarterback might transfer if they fire the coach. And there's always another quarterback. And I think maybe that's where I'm going to land, where there's always another young quarterback, but there's not always another good veteran quarterback right now that you have right now. We'll see. I haven't completely reasoned it out yet, but I appreciate you helping workshop that.
But let's talk
about that more tomorrow.
Okay. All right, fine. I had something else to say, but we will wait for it tomorrow.
Yeah, no, save it. Because we got to pick games today.
It's such a fun discussion. Like, that's what I love about this podcast, and like just being able to talk stuff out with you, because like it really is so fascinating to me. Like if there was a discussion in the Oklahoma room of like well, we have a really hard schedule this year, and we don't know if we're going to win 10 games regardless of who our quarterback is. Go with the kid. Okay, tomorrow. Sorry.
Tomorrow, well, especially the Oklahoma one, because it's way more complicated than most people realize. So that requires some time to let that breathe. So we will talk about that in depth tomorrow. We have to pick some games. But before that, I got to tell you about the money game. Speaking of games, we talked about Harold Perkins being done at LSU. If you want to go in depth at LSU, the money game is streaming now on Amazon Prime. It follows a bunch of LSU star athletes last year as they navigate the NIL landscape. You're talking about Jayden Daniels. He's winning the Heisman Trophy. Angel Reese, as she's one of the biggest stars in women's college basketball, about to go to the WNBA. Livvy Dunne, as she becomes, goes from LSU gymnast to global icon. It's very fascinating and right up the alley of the folks who watch and listen to this show. So if you'd like to watch the money game on Prime Video, click the link in the show description. Whether you're listening on podcast, watch it on YouTube, you click that link in the show description. It'll take you right there. If you are already an Amazon Prime subscriber, if you are not already a Prime subscriber, well, it'll help you get signed up. And you can watch the money game, and you can watch the Rings of Power and Thursday night NFL football and Fallout, you name it. Lots to watch on Prime Video. But that money game is really interesting and will help you kind of understand a little more of when we're talking about the NIL world, because they go very deep into it. And you get some just really interesting behind the scenes access. I thought the stuff that we saw from LSU's football season last year was very enlightening. So watch the money game. Click that link in the show description. It'll take you right there. All right, Ari. We got games to pick. And we have another really good appetizer this week. Virginia Tech at Miami is our appetizer. This is where, the same slot as Illinois, Nebraska last week. Virginia Tech at Miami. Miami is a 17.5-point favorite. Virginia Tech coming off a tough loss to Rutgers, which, we said before the season that was going to be a tough game for the Hokies. Going to be a toss-up. They end up losing by 2. The Miami thing's interesting. So Miami was playing USF on Saturday, and at one point USF led that game 15-14 in the second quarter. And Miami ended up winning 50-15. Yeah. The just go off and explode potential of Miami with Cam Ward running the show is really big.
Yeah, well, here's the excuse me. The thing about this game on Friday night is that I am in a position right now where Clemson is starting to scare me a little bit in the ACC, right? Like, it was easy to write them off after week 1. They're scoring 59 points in consecutive games. You're looking at their schedule, and it's getting harder and harder to say that Miami is the best team without a question in that conference right now, right? Like, if you would have asked me 2 weeks ago, will Miami beat Clemson? I'd be like, yeah. Now it's more of a question. So when we talk about Miami as an ACC favorite, when we talk about Miami as a potential top 4 seed in this college football playoff, and really start viewing them as a team that isn't going to choke, but is actually really good, you want to see them come out on a national television audience and take care of a team that they're unquestionably better than. And this is going to be tricky because I know, you took the bait. I took the bait. There was a thought there that Virginia Tech was going to surprise some people this year and be a very good football team. Obviously, that hasn't gotten off to the right start there. They're 2-2, and they've lost to Vanderbilt and Rutgers, which sounds way worse than it probably is. But still, you want to see Miami come out and take care of business. You want to see Cam Ward have another 350, 400-yard game in a conference game. Like, it's one thing to watch a team, just blow out teams that can't compete. But on the right night, Virginia Tech could probably beat anybody in that conference. I don't know if you still agree with that, but that's what I think. You want to see Miami assert itself, flex its muscles, and show the country that they're a legitimate team to be considered a not just a playoff team, but a team that can win a few in the playoff and maybe get to the Final Four and beyond. So they've done a really good job, as we've noted, watching them play Florida in week 1 with their lines. They have explosive playmaking ability at the wide receiver position. Xavier Restrepo, I think, is a player that should be a star and known nationally, and I'm not sure that if he is yet. Their running backs are really good, and of course, they've got Cam Ward. So, I've got high hopes for this team, and I think Friday night's a good chance to show the entire country, while they're not just watching the box scores update on Saturday, what it looks like to watch them on TV.
Well, that's the thing. If Miami is what we think they are, they cover this spread. Like, they beat Virginia Tech comfortably. If they are who we think they are. If they are still not quite there yet, this is going to be a struggle. This is going to be a close game. I don't know who wins it, but I think that's the question you have to ask yourself is, has Miami gotten over that hump? Are they now the type of team that we should expect to compete for the ACC title, to expect to compete for the playoff, to expect to maybe compete for the national title? And listen, I've said with this Miami team that the way they play on both lines of scrimmage, it makes them a little recession proof. It makes it where it's hard to have a stinker. If you just physically dominate someone up front, it's harder to have a stinker. And so that causes me to lean toward taking Miami to cover, even though this is an obscene amount of points for a conference game on a Friday night.
Yeah, it is a lot of points, but two thoughts on Cam Ward here real quick too, Andy. So I think you and I both in the On3 Heisman watch put Cam Ward in the top 3. I think he was number 2 for both of us. And I don't know if you read those mentions, but I do because I can't control myself. And there are a lot of people who are like, Cam Ward's a fraud. Cam Ward's not as good as he looks. Like, he's going to turn the ball over in big games, like all the usual Cam Ward things that you would expect. But then on the other hand, I don't know how closely you watched Miami play in that 50-15 win, but did you see that lateral that he made on Saturday night?
Yes, I sure did.
Man's feeling himself a little bit. Like I don't know what the ceiling is for Cam Ward's stardom this year, but I think Friday night could be a first audition for being one of the faces of the sport if he goes out and shows out.
Well, I think what happened with Cam Ward, and this could still happen when Miami plays really good teams. We don't know this yet. But at Washington State, he would be feeling himself and he'd put the ball in harm's way. Mm-hmm. And he didn't have the kind of teammates around him that he has now. So he has teammates that when he does get a little bit loose with it, keep him out of trouble in this case. That may not be let's say they have to play Clemson in the ACC championship game, or they make the playoff and they have to play one of these superpowers from the SEC or the Big Ten. They might not be able to bail him out in that case. It may look like the Cam Ward from Washington State. But right now, when he's surrounded by all these great players against lesser competition, he can get away with almost anything.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I don't know. How do we view Virginia Tech in terms of whether that should be a tough game? Because you look down at the spread, and let me ask you this. If the spread was Miami minus 7.5, would you be like, whoa, that's way too low? Like that to me is, I think that would have been appropriate. That would have probably been something that I would have thought. And granted, I know Virginia Tech has lost to 2 teams that are usually embarrassing to lose to. I don't know that they're as embarrassing to lose to this year as they've been in the past. But so I don't know, like this spread makes me feel like Miami is as good as they are, as I've said they are, so that I've been fooled, like I haven't been fooled. Like after the first game of the season, I'm like, holy crap, this team is really, really good. Now we've gotten more context on what Florida is, so it kind of takes away a little bit, but like 17.5 points is a very large spread for a conference game, like you said, on Friday night.
Yeah, the Friday night piece of it, I know a lot of people don't care. I do take that into account because teams know when they are the team that everyone in the country is watching. And I feel like that makes teams play better sometimes. Like the team that is not expected to win tends to play better in situations like that because they know everybody they've ever met is watching them right now.
I mean, I think Miami's fortunate this game isn't in that big old stadium with Enter Sandman this weekend. Lane Stadium would have been rocking.
It would have. It would have. So, and then, Virginia Tech kind of, they sort of pioneered the weeknight conference game in the ACC. But I do think Miami is, I think Miami's what we thought. And I'm going to believe that until they prove me wrong. So I'm going to take Miami to cover here.
I think I am going to take Virginia Tech to cover here, Andy, because I just think the points
it's a lot of points.
Too many points. I think Miami can win this game by 16 and have a very impressive outing, and Cam Moore can have a good game, but I just covering the 17.5, it seems like a lot of points to me. So it's not a doubt that Miami's going to win. I think they'll win comfortably, but I could see them being up, 24 in the fourth quarter and giving up a late score there, and not covering the spread.
Well, we will get to another game with a lot of points. Surprising number of points to me for a conference game. Again, in one segment, first, I got to tell about Gametime. Would you like to go see Georgia play Alabama this weekend in Tuscaloosa? The game's been sold out for infinity years, but you can still get tickets on Gametime. Gametime has tickets to every game. When you use the GT Picks feature on Gametime, it cuts through the fluff, gives you the best deals relative to market value that you can find. So when you click GT Picks, you know you are getting the best possible deal on a ticket for a game that really everybody wants to go to. Now, it's not just Georgia, Alabama. Would you like to go see Penn State play against Illinois? You can actually get into that one for under $100 right now on Gametime. That's going to be a heck of a game. We're going to be picking that game here in a few minutes. So download that Gametime app, use that GT Picks feature, use the code STAPLES for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Gametime has tickets to everything you need, even at the last minute, whether it's a sporting event, comedy show, concert, you name it, they got it. Go to Gametime, download the app, use the code STAPLES, $20 off your first purchase. All right, Ari. Continuing with the theme of holy crap, that's a lot of points, especially in a conference game. Wisconsin at USC opened as a USC a 12.5 point favorite. USC then was bet up to a 14.5 point favorite against the Badgers. This is Alex Grinch returning to the Coliseum. He's now Wisconsin's safeties coach, so he's actually not deciding exactly what personnel they recruit, like on their defensive line. So he's not putting 260-pound defensive linemen in there. But what do you think about this? You and I saw Wisconsin the last time they played in person. We were there for the Alabama game, and then USC is coming off a just emotionally brutal loss to Michigan.
I think Wisconsin probably had a bye week at the right time, right? And the column I wrote off of the game, when we went to that Alabama blowout, we're like, well, I'm not sure if there's going to be a Wisconsin angle here, but one came out pretty quickly there, and that's like, is this offense broken? Does it have an identity crisis? Because when Luke Fickell took over there, you thought that Wisconsin would be able to have a ton of types of playmakers at the skill positions that Wisconsin wasn't able to get in the past, and that they would have higher quarterback play, and they would still be able to run the ball very efficiently. And I'm not sure that they did anything all that well against Alabama. Now, granted, Tyler Van Dyke did get injured, I believe, on the first drive of the game. And you have to go to a quarterback with little to no experience, but like you're not in a position
Braden
where...
Lockout experience last year.
He
replaced Tanner Mordecai for 4 games last year.
Yeah. Okay, well, so it shouldn't have looked as bad as it did. But Andy, when you go into this game in LA, what is the thing that you think Wisconsin will undoubtedly be good at?
Running the ball. And I think they watch the tape.
Yeah. So do you think that they still have it in them to be the Wisconsin of old? Like, are you still confident that they could still play bully ball the way that Michigan did a week ago?
I think they should try. And look, you and I talked about this. You wrote it in your column. When Phil Longo got hired at Wisconsin, my vision for that was not that they were going to be throwing it all over the place. I was thinking back to 2020 at North Carolina when they had Michael Carter and Devontae Williams and were just running down people's throats. I think that they should be able to, because in the Alabama game, when Alabama knew they were going to run, Wisconsin had success running the ball. Like, they just couldn't keep up with Alabama on the scoreboard. Like, they couldn't defend Alabama. And they didn't finish drives either. USC. Yeah. So,
well, that's the thing too. It's just like, I don't know. I think Michigan's defense is much better than Wisconsin's. So I think USC is probably not going to go an entire half without getting a first down, like it felt like on Saturday.
Yeah.
And we might find ourselves in a position where even if Wisconsin's moving the ball on the ground moderately well, if they're not finishing drives or they're not able to throw effectively in throwing situations, that they just won't be able to keep up in the same way. Now, Andy, it's really, really hard to contextualize a loss to Alabama, because it's just like sometimes you play a team that's much better than you and they make you look foolish when you're not actually foolish. But I just don't know that Wisconsin's offense is where I would have wanted it to be by this point, Luke Fickell's tenure. And I just don't think they're going to be able to keep up on the scoreboard. Also, USC, was a team that we were super excited about last week. We probably would be off the wall excited right now if they would have figured out a way to close that game against Michigan on Saturday. And I haven't lost confidence in their offense to be able to put some points up for Lincoln Riley to scheme up some offensive plays to exploit Wisconsin's weaknesses. Even if they have a hard time stopping Wisconsin's rushing attack to a certain extent, I just don't know that Wisconsin's going to be able to keep up with anybody that has the type of skill talent that USC has this year.
Yeah, so Ches Malusi averaged 6 yards a carry against Alabama. Cade Yakameli averaged 4.9 yards a carry against Alabama. USC's defense is not Alabama's defense. Wisconsin's going to be able to run on these guys. But I am in the same boat as you, which is I struggle with this line, though, because it's so many points. Like, I could see Wisconsin sneaking in the back door and covering this in a 2-touchdown loss. Like, because I am with you. I don't think Wisconsin can defend USC. I think USC is going to score a bunch of points.
It is kind of funny, though, when you think, like, everything that they were saying about USC when they took the Big Ten invitation of like, oh, you're not going to be able to keep up in the Big Ten. You're going to get the ball jammed down your throat. Your team's not built for this. Like, for their first 2 games to be Michigan and Wisconsin's kind of funny. And I don't know if Wisconsin is the Wisconsin that we've known to grow. And maybe they are. Maybe they'll prove that Alabama is just, it's possible that Wisconsin could be in a 1-possession game with USC in the fourth quarter and Alabama beats Georgia on Saturday. And we're like, oh, they ran six yards a carry against an Alabama team that just beat Georgia. Like, we're still gathering information. We're still trying to get a feel for it. But like, when I was at the game in Madison with you, I just felt like Wisconsin isn't 100% sure of what it is. So I hope they took the bye week. I hope they took the film from the USC-Michigan game and decided the same way that Sharon Moore did with Michigan of like, here's what we are. Here's what we're going to do. And if it's not good enough, we're going to lose, but we're going to do what we are. And I think that's what Wisconsin has done over the last, 20 years. And if you're going to, move on from that, hire a person who likes to throw the ball a little bit more in Phil Longo and try to, accentuate that running attack with better offensive weapons. If you don't have them right now, then the one thing that you have to do is be yourself. And I think, if Michigan was able to beat USC at home with a quarterback that ran for 32 or that threw for 32 yards and Alex Orji, which I still can't believe every time I look at that box score, like Wisconsin should be able to be in the game by running clock and doing what it has to do if you think that they're going to be able to move the ball effectively against the Trojans on the ground.
Well, and the bye week thing is playing into my thoughts here too, because USC got beat to hell up front. And not just, I'm not saying that they were dominated and their D-line was dominated toward the end, but they just got pounded by very large people on both sides of the ball, and it just happened last week. Wisconsin got pounded by very large, very good people on both sides of the ball, but that was 2 weeks ago. And I do think that also matters as you go forward. These are the things we're going to have to consider in these Big Ten and SEC games, like schedules who you just played or who you didn't play at all is going to matter a lot going forward. And Wisconsin having the bye week, I am going to go with Wisconsin to cover because they had that bye week. I think they're going to be able to keep it semi-close. I don't think they're going to win this game. I'm just saying they're going to cover because I'm getting a truckload of points.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go USC here and feel not as confident about it as I would like to. But you know what I really like in this game? If you think that Wisconsin's going to cover, then that over looks really attractive to me. Like if you think that this is like a 31-21, 31-24 type game, I think that number, because I can't just imagine a world, unless Wisconsin has 12-minute drives multiple times in this game, where USC doesn't get to 30 points in this game.
I mean, 44-30 is a plausible outcome for this game, and then Wisconsin covers.
I mean, if Wisconsin scores 30 points in this game, then USC's in trouble this year, in my opinion.
I would agree. But watching Michigan run the ball against them, I think, and look, if they hadn't just played Michigan, I don't know that I'd be as confident in Wisconsin running the line. And maybe they prove me wrong. Maybe USC completely proves me wrong. But given what we saw and the fact that there is a body blow effect, it's like, Bruce Feldman, our friend at The Athletic and Fox Sports, used to always write this story about teams that had just played Navy and how poorly they played the week after they played Navy. Well, playing against Michigan, at least the Michigan we saw last week, is like playing a supercharged service academy team. So you just got pounded on.
You're right. I have to say this, though. And it was surprising to me. But if you go back and watch the second half of the Michigan-USC game, USC really hung in there well physically. Like, until that last drive, obviously.
USC's changes on the offensive line at halftime made a massive difference. They blocked a lot better. I don't think USC's D-line was that much better. I think the fact that USC's offense was moving the ball changed the dynamics of that game quite a bit. Because remember, the first half, USC was just going 3 and out every series.
Right, for sure. And if you're a defense that knows that the other team can't throw the ball at all, and you give up a 2-minute drill without them putting the ball in the air one time, like that's just like the personification of what the issue was last year. But I do think that Wisconsin probably has a more functional passing attack than Michigan does at this point too. So that changes things a little bit from the calculus of the spread.
Well, and we'll see what they built around Braden Locke, knowing that he's got to be the guy. It'll probably look a little bit different, but I'm fascinated to see this game. Every game this week, there's some sort of hook to it. So we will talk. We're going to move to the Big 12 next. But first, we got to talk about PrizePicks, the best daily fantasy game in America. Use the code Staples, play $5, get $50 instantly. This past weekend, I used that almost free Caleb Williams square to pick a winner. I had a four square play. Producer River showing the 5 square play that I gave out that where only 2 of them hit. Yeah, that wasn't my best work. Ari told me don't pick a kicker. Stay away from the kickers. I picked USC's kicker. I was sure he was going to have a couple field goals and an extra point, and it turned out that they stopped needing to kick field goals because they started scoring touchdowns. And then, that didn't work. But I did have a winner. That's also not the winner, Producer River. There's the winner. There's the winner. Thanks to that almost free Caleb Williams square where all he had to do was throw for a yard. But Nate Noel just tearing it up for Missouri against Vanderbilt. Garrett Nussmeier, I'm very confident in Garrett Nussmeier. And then Garrett Green, the West Virginia quarterback, they were in a fight with Kansas going into the second half. So I did more than 19.5 rushing yards in the second half. And sure enough, Garrett Green, White Lightning, came through for me. So that's how you play PrizePicks. You pick as few as 2 squares. You can pick more. The more you pick, the higher the potential payout. It's so much fun. Makes watching the games very entertaining. And again, every week in September, you've got the almost free Caleb Williams square. And that was very helpful. 1 yard equals 1 win. So 1 more of those. And that's coming up this week. So Caleb Williams can bail you out if you're not super confident, I think, as long as he throws for a yard. I was a little nervous for a second yesterday.
Yeah.
And then he did.
He turned it over a few times on Sunday, but I think he threw for more than 250 yards. So he
threw for almost 300 yards. Yeah. Yeah. So, but I only needed the 1. So I was happy. So download PrizePicks, use code Staples, play $5, get $50 instantly. All right. Are you moving to the Big 12? Oklahoma State at Kansas State, 2 teams coming off conference losses. This opened with Kansas State a 3.5-point favorite and has moved to Kansas State as a 5.5-point favorite. So you mentioned earlier the Baylor BYU spread, where Baylor was installed as the favorite against BYU. Baylor coming off that horrific loss to Colorado, where they gagged it away at the end. And then K-State was installed as a favorite in this game, and then the gamblers bet it up to 5.5. They have a lot more faith in K-State bouncing back than maybe I do, because I think Oklahoma State may be the one that bounces back in this game.
Yeah, I don't know if we would have drawn this up before the year, but if you would have told me that the Oklahoma State Kansas State game would be matchups between 2 0-1 teams in the Big 12, I probably wouldn't have believed that. And now here we are early on in the season with a must win probably for both if either of these teams want us to get back in the race. Now, I don't know. Maybe that's not a must win. Maybe in the Big 12, we're going to have just every single team dropping games, and it's just going to be a complete cluster. But at this point in time, these were two of the three teams that I thought had the best chances of winning the conference, and they're both, losing to teams that I didn't think that they were going to lose to. Well, that's not true. Oklahoma State lost to a really good team. That was the third one. But yeah, I don't know. The bounce back must win game here, that the factor that it's in Manhattan, I don't know that I would feel comfortable laying 5.5 points though.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, so Scott asked in the chat, what's wrong with Ollie Gordon? What's wrong with Ollie Gordon is Oklahoma State's not running the ball very well, period. But they are throwing the ball fairly well. I just thought Utah dominated them up front for a lot of that game. Now, Oklahoma State did come back there at the end, but I don't know that I would sit there and expect Oklahoma State to just trounce people on the ground. Like, they're going to have to throw the ball to win. But I think they can probably do that against K-State. I don't think K-State's going to completely shut them down. Now, the BYU game, the score is probably pretty misleading because it was turnovers that led to directly to some BYU points. So it wasn't like BYU was just rolling over Kansas State offensively the whole game. But Oklahoma State is probably just as good at baiting Avery Johnson into a turnover as BYU. My thing, Ari, is I wonder if Kansas State's going to figure out what they are offensively. Like, look at the Arizona game.
Mm-hmm.
Run the ball. You have the fastest quarterback in America. You have a really good running back. Run the ball. Stop trying to be something you're not. Run it so much and so effectively that they are scared and put 9 people in the box and can't disguise their coverages and then throw over top of them. But run the ball.
Yeah, I think I'm with you with that. We talked ourselves into Avery Johnson potentially being a trendy preseason Heisman pick. I think that we all thought that this was going to look a little bit differently than it's looked so far this year. But to your point, he rushed it 11 times for 74 yards in the loss to BYU, and they averaged 5.5 yards a carry in the game, and they only scored 9 points, and I don't think they scored a touchdown. So, yeah, I don't know how you go from looking as good as you did or as exciting as you did against Arizona to laying a complete egg. But, it is also on the table, Andy, that in 3 weeks we're having a discussion about BYU being a contender to win the conference too. Like, this is one of those conferences where you could have come into the year and made a legitimate case for 10 different teams in this conference to win it. So, this is in a very important game for the conference race standpoint, but at the same time, too, we could be 3 weeks removed away from it being Utah and everybody else, or everybody in the same, kind of hodgepodge of teams together.
Yeah, everything under the umbrella. 3-loss Big 12 champion, 4-seed playoff team possible. Yeah, it's possible.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think you could probably make a case that, I don't know if Utah's going to lose 3 times, but you can make a case that it's more than possible that it could be semi-likely. And that's why we have this discussion, and we will. I guarantee you right now, I'm going to tell you, Andy, I guarantee you that we will be having a discussion in November about how the 5 seed has it the best. And there are people out there that think that the extra game, no matter who you're playing, is worse than playing a good team in the second round.
It's not, because you might
round.
Yeah, because the 4 seed is going to be misseeded. And they're not going to be the 4th best team in the country. There's a chance they could be the 15th best team in the country. It's not the 5-12 game that makes the 5 seed the best. It's the 4-5 game that makes the 5 seed the best.
But some people think that because there's a chance of injury and wear and tear on the body, that just having to play the extra 4 quarters against the group of 5 team is rough. So I don't know if I agree with that, but I think I would rather play 12-5 than.
I also think it matters if you had to play in a conference championship game or not, and we don't know that.
Yeah, that's true. But yeah, so the Big 12 is competitive, it's exciting, it's interesting, and it's crazy. And it's already crazy.
And we got a couple more Big 12 games to pick here that have even bigger spreads. I'm going to take Oklahoma State here.
Yeah, me too. No question.
All right. Let us move on to the Big Ten. Another conference game with a huge spread. Illinois at Penn State. Penn State is a 17.5-point favorite in this game. The last time Illinois went to State College, it was 9 overtimes, and Illinois won. This is a little bit different situation. This is Penn State's first big test. Illinois is coming off that big win against Nebraska. Ari, I have a very hard time believing that Penn State is just going to blow out Illinois. I like seeing Penn State winning. I can envision that completely, but seeing Penn State blow this team out, now having watched Illinois against Nebraska and against Kansas, like I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah, I don't either. But I also am man enough to admit that I am uncertain of what Penn State is right now. Because on one hand, they open up the season on the road at West Virginia and just completely maul them. And Drew Aller looks like a very improved, exciting new quarterback with Andy Kotelnicki, the offensive coordinator there. And then they almost lose to Bowling Green the following week. And then, they play Kent State. So, which team is Penn State? And, of course, West Virginia, too, has gotten off to a pretty rough start this year. So, Illinois might legitimately just be very good. I was very impressed with Luke Altmaier on Friday night. And I don't know what your thoughts were on that, but if they're able to go on the road and beat Nebraska on a Friday night game, they've already played on the road in a very excited crowd in a tough atmosphere. It's not the same as Penn State, but at the same time, too, it might be because I believe that this game is during the day and that was a night game at Nebraska. So they're primed for the
this game's not during the day, Ari. This game's at
night.
It's
a night game? Oh, it is? Okay. Well, still think that they're going to be okay from a crowd noise standpoint, even though I think Penn State has the largest, most intimidating crowd that I've seen in college football. I don't know what the atmosphere is going to be like, but Illinois, I think we just have to start talking about, are you just a really good football team? I think that's a chance that they're just a really good team.
Yeah. You mentioned Luke Altmaier. Another guy that's very impressive is Pat Bryant, their receiver. He's one of the best blocking receivers that you're going to see. Plus, he can catch the ball and do some things with it. I'm very excited to see this Penn State offense against a defense that we've seen have some success. I said after the game, the Nebraska game, I thought Aaron Henry called a really good game, especially that overtime series. He was messing with Dylan Raiola's head. Can he mess with Drew Aller's head? Because historically, Drew Aller, if you pressure him, is going to eat the ball and take the sack. Drew Aller does not put the ball in harm's way. So if you can get that kind of pressure against Penn State, you may have some serious negative plays that are going to help you down the road. So it's too many points for me, Ari. I'm going to take Illinois to cover. I don't think Illinois is going to win, but I really feel confident in them covering if you're going to give me this many points.
This game definitely could be tied, or Penn State could be losing in the third quarter. Give me the points.
Yeah. I just and it's good. I think you might have it right. I think Illinois might just be good, and maybe we're wrong on this. Vegas certainly doesn't think so, but I think we've seen enough to.
Well, I noticed on your bracketology this weekend, didn't you have Illinois as one of the first 4 out?
I did because look, the results of the games have to mean something. And, you can say, oh, Kansas has lost 3 games. I get it. They've all been nail biters, every single one of them. I don't think Kansas is bad. So,
yeah. But the way I've been approaching it is I'm projecting what I think it's going to be, not what it looks like right now. And I'm not saying you're not doing it that way, but if you do believe that Illinois is good enough to be because when you're the first 4 out, that means you're 13-17, right? It's not like you're not missing it by 1 spot at number 5. I still think that it's very legitimate to think that Illinois is the number 17 or 18 team in the country.
Yeah. All right. I'm taking Illinois though. Who you got?
Illinois.
All right. So both taking Illinois because the giant spread. We now move to a game that is so much angst. 2 teams experiencing massive angst right now. Oklahoma heads to the Plains. First SEC road game for the Sooners. They are playing Auburn. Oklahoma is a 2.5-point favorite in this game. Ari, you and I talked at length about both of these teams on Saturday night. Oklahoma, you saw against Texas, not blocking very well, changing quarterbacks. Brent Venables has said they will evaluate it. We don't know if it's going to be Jackson Arnold or Hawkins. Auburn, well, Hugh Freeze just threw all of his quarterbacks under the bus. He doesn't like any of them. This is going to be wild.
Andy, I'll line up for Oklahoma. You line up for Auburn, and just let's, at quarterback, and we'll see how it goes.
Oh, hey, listen, here's my thing. As mad as Oklahoma fans are about the state of their offense, as unhappy as they were with what happened in the Tennessee game, they're going to be able to move the ball better on Auburn's defense. Like, look at what happened in the Arkansas game. Look at what Arkansas did. Arkansas, they hit a couple passes, but at the end of the game, they're just like, screw it. We're just going to ram the ball down your throat. And they did. Now, Taylon Green and Jaquindon Jackson are a pretty formidable tandem running the ball. I don't think Oklahoma can run the ball quite like that, but I think they can run it enough. And I think Oklahoma's defense is going to terrorize Auburn's offense.
Could we have a real discussion here of this spread being way too small? I mean, I guess that's what we're doing, right? Like,
yes,
Oklahoma's defense is really, really good. Okay.
Yes.
I know they had a really rough night on Saturday night, and I know they gave up some plays to a really good Tennessee team, but I left that stadium feeling really good about Oklahoma's defense. And obviously that's what happens when Brent Venables is your head coach. I'm not necessarily sure that I agree with what they did with Jackson Arnold. I think when you make that decision, you have to live with it, and creating a quarterback controversy or at least a quarterback discussion in the middle of the year probably isn't exactly what Oklahoma needed. But from a whole top to bottom team standpoint, like, I think Oklahoma is unquestionably the better team here. Like, I do not know how Auburn is going to score on Saturday.
That's my thing. That's where I keep coming back to. I don't think it matters anything else. Like, Oklahoma's offense might struggle a bit, but Oklahoma's defense is going to force turnovers. I don't know how Auburn doesn't commit turnovers, because they've committed turnovers against everybody else, and this defense is better at forcing them than the defenses they played.
And Hugh Freeze isn't necessarily harboring a loving, let's repair this environment right now either. Like, I am on high alert of implosion watch, because you don't get up and throw your team under the bus the way that he did, and then everybody goes to practice feeling good about where they're at. I know that Oklahoma also is in a tricky situation, because what they do with the quarterback now is going to be a season-long discussion, and I think we have to keep tabs on it. That's real. Even if Oklahoma isn't in the playoff mix, I think that it's a very inherently interesting situation there. Again, I cannot believe they did it, but they did. So, yeah, I don't know if I love where Auburn is as a program right now. So I like this seems a small number to me.
Yeah, I will take Oklahoma to cover here. I'm happy to do that, even as a road dog. That is yeah. I just don't know how Auburn scores, and I don't know how Auburn does not serve it up to Oklahoma in some very advantageous situations.
And you know that Hugh Freeze, with given the opportunity to choose of any of the four quarterbacks that have played with these two teams this year, he's taking Oklahoma's two, Michael Hawkins Jr. and Jackson Arnold, over the two he has, right?
Yes.
So,
correct.
I think that Oklahoma, their defense is really good. Their line, I thought, did really well against Tennessee. They have guys making plays. Peyton Bowen's amazing. Like, they have the pieces. And I think that not only are they going to win, I think they're going to win this game pretty comfortably.
Let's stay in the SEC, Ari, a game that I think is going to be a little trickier to pick. Arkansas against Texas A&M at Jerry World. This is Texas A&M is a 4.5-point favorite in this game. I really don't know what to think here, because I like where Arkansas is at. Texas A&M just had a tough game against Bowling Green. I'm kind of wondering, because Bowling Green did this to Penn State too. Like, are we going to find out in MAC play that Bowling Green's just good?
It's possible, yes. But I still don't know if that's excusable for the two teams that had close games with them.
No, I don't know if it is either, but I don't. I also know that Texas A&M was coming off the road win against Florida. They're probably, not taking that all that seriously. They still did win the game. Now they absolutely must take Arkansas seriously, because you've seen them almost beat Oklahoma State. You saw them go to Auburn and win. the way they won in Auburn was very impressive. Auburn can beat this team. Like, you should be scared if you're Texas A&M. I just don't know what happens here.
Yeah. I have a hidden, but not so hidden love affair with Arkansas this year. Like, I think that they are much better, and I still don't know that they're getting the credit that they deserve. And I think that if they wouldn't have lost to Oklahoma State the way that they did, think about the excitement. They would probably be a top 15 team right now.
Yes.
And this is a good time for our victory lap too, Andy. Like, we both called them money line last week. We were wrong a lot, but this game,
We got that one, yeah.
we got that one. And I think that it was because Arkansas is better than they're getting credit for. Now, this is a very tough situation here. Like, I don't know exactly what Texas A&M is. Do we know what they're doing 100% with their quarterback on Saturday? Do we know like that? It's just like there's a lot of stuff that's up in the air, but Arkansas is a tough team. And like you said, their running back quarterback combination is about as exciting of a pair as you'll find in the entire sport this year.
Yeah, and it's interesting because we don't know what A&M is going to be. I think the assumption is if Marcel Reed is still playing, if Wegman's not back, that you're going to be very run heavy. Now, the thing is, if Marcel Reed is the QB for Texas A&M, it's going to be a steady dose of him and Le'Veon Moss. They probably aren't going to do a lot of dangerous things. So Arkansas probably needs to understand that turnovers are not going to be as plentiful as they were against Auburn. And they better be careful because Arkansas made some mistakes in that Auburn game. Like, at the end of the first half, the teams were just trading turnovers. Mm-hmm. And if you do that against A&M and A&M's playing the way they've played the last couple of weeks, they're not going to just give it back to you. They're probably going to score some points. So you've got to be very careful there if you're Arkansas.
Yep. And this is a neutral site game, right? So we don't have any tile field. Yeah. This game's always crazy. I've been to it a few times in Dallas, and it's just a crazy. There's always like a crazy turnover or a pick six or something. Like, I'm excited for it. But 4.5 points for an A&M team that may still be trying to figure out who it is seems kind of like a little bit, maybe 1.5 points too much. 2 points too much.
So you're going to take the Hogs?
I think I'm going to ride the Hogs. I mean, I've picked Arkansas in every game this year, and I'm 3-1.
Yeah. Well, are you 3? Because didn't they cover against Oklahoma State?
Yes, but they did not against UAB.
Oh, that's right. That's right. They didn't cover against you. I forgot about that. Okay. Yeah. So Ari is embracing the Hog. I'm going with the Aggies in this one. I think they're pretty good. I think the Notre Dame game, they're gonna kick themselves a lot over that as the year goes on. So I will take the Aggies. Ari is embracing the Hog here.
As an aside, Andy, before you move on to the next game, if Reed plays and plays well, or if Wegman plays and doesn't play well and Reed comes in, are Texas A&M and Oklahoma like simpatico with their quarterback decision making? I'm on high alert with what goes on in College Station too as they navigate the rest of the SEC schedule, because I know people in Aggie Land are pretty excited about Reed's playmaking ability.
Well, that's the thing. If he's leading you to wins, like, there's a Wally Pipp situation in play here too. Like, it may not be that Wegman's just an automatic. You start him when he's healthy, like because
he hasn't been lights out in his starts.
Right.
He's shown glimpses of being very good, but he has not been like the no doubt about it. You're an idiot for even bringing up that could be a thing.
Right.
And
right. Like, it's not like the Texas situation where Quinn Ewers is going to be the starter when he's healthy and comes back. It's a different situation. So moving on to another game that when I saw the opening line, I was like, "Ooh, that feels like too many points." And then they bet it further up. Colorado going to Orlando to play UCF. Opened at 11.5. UCF favored. Now UCF favored by 13.5 as we pick this game, Ari. That's a lot of points.
It is. It is. People got absolutely rocked if they bet Baylor on Saturday. And because it's one thing to give up a Hail Mary, and we didn't say this on the show, but Baylor's prevent last play of the game defense is called Victory Cigar. Did you see that?
I know. If I were Dave Aranda, I would never have admitted that publicly.
I can't
Why on
believe he
earth would
said
you
that.
say that out loud?
And then on top of it, the way that the game ended, like, you want to talk about being like a bettor and living through that. If you were on Baylor money line in that game, or hell, even
that's brutal.
Baylor +2. But I just wanted to make sure we talked about it on the show because I thought that was really funny.
It was hysterical.
I mean, we both have Travis Hunter as the number one on our Heisman ballots.
He's the best football player in the country. Who catches 130 yards worth of passes and then makes the most important defensive play in the game? There's nobody else who can do that. There's nobody else even close to capable of that. So absolutely, Travis Hunter makes a huge difference. I don't know what to think about this game because I think Colorado is going to be able to score on UCF. Now, there is a world I can envision where it's a steady diet of KJ Jefferson and RJ Harvey over and over again, averaging 7 yards a carry until they hit a 65-yard pop pass on you, like over and over and over again. But on the other side, I can still see Colorado scoring enough to keep this interesting.
Yeah, 13.5 is a lot of points, but like KJ Jefferson was put on this earth to play against a defense like this. Like, if you have KJ Jefferson on your team, like if you're watching film as Colorado's defensive staff, and they're like, well, if UCF decides to turn KJ Jefferson into a battering ram, like, what are we going to do? I think that the answer to that question is you're probably just going to lose. So I don't know if I'd want to lay 2 touchdowns here, but I have a really hard time envisioning a world where Colorado is going to be able to stop UCF. It might be long sustained drives, but I don't know how they're going to stop them.
It's UCF stopping Colorado is my question. And
yeah,
I think UCF's pass rush is probably better than Baylor's, but is it as good as Nebraska's? I don't know.
Yeah, because I don't know if they have anybody who can cover Hunter either. Like,
well, they can't. I don't think they can cover those receivers. I think they have to get Shedeur on the ground. I think that's the only way you stop that. And so, I don't know. But let me just read some stats to you.
Yeah, please.
To further your point about UCF running the ball in this game, RJ Harvey is averaging 7.6 yards a carry. Penny Boone is averaging 6.6 yards a carry. Miles Montgomery, the third back, is averaging 7 yards a carry. KJ Jefferson's only averaging 4.7 yards a carry because sacks get taken out as well. But good God, they can just steamroll if they want.
Yeah, and I'm sure you're on high alert of this. But if UCF goes out there and takes care of business and wins by 1, you have a really excited UCF football team that's pretty undefeated. And I like to say it like that, pretty undefeated going into Gainesville, Florida. So I'm on high alert for that too. I think it's too many points, Andy. My hope for Colorado is that they do something to slow this rushing attack down. But I do think that like big chunk plays in the passing game are pretty out there for the taking for them as well.
Yeah, I'm going to take Colorado here. I don't know if Colorado's going to win this game, but if you're going to give me almost 2 touchdowns, I will take the Buffaloes in this one.
Yep, I'm with you.
All right, staying in the Big 12, Arizona goes to Utah. The last time we saw Arizona, they were getting battered by Kansas State. Utah goes to Stillwater and wins. This is one, Ari, where, like, if I just go by what I've seen this year, this is an easy one. Well, maybe not easy with the spread because I feel like the line's too high. Utah's an 11.5 point favorite. Here's why I'm leaning Arizona in this game. Not money line. I don't want to go crazy. But if we just go by what the last game we saw of each team, you're like, oh, Utah's going to kill them easily. Arizona's not going to be able to handle them up front. And Utah's just going to control this game. If Cam Rising's back, it's going to be even easier for Utah. Here's the thing. That Utah-Oklahoma State game is not easy on the body.
Yep.
The Big 12 is going to go like this because you're going to have a great game, and then you're going to have a game that you're a little tired, and the other team is coming off a bye week, and like that's what this is right here. So if you're going to say Utah's got to win this game by 12 points, no thank you. I'll take Arizona.
Especially you could make the case that Arizona has a top 3 receiver in the country. And
yes.
It's really hard to cover him. And I just don't know if Arizona's lines are up for the challenge in this game, Andy. And if your lines aren't up for the challenge, then 11.5 seems big on paper, but it gets out of control really quickly.
But if it's Isaac Wilson, are they gonna score enough to do that?
It's the other thing too of like, when is Cam Rising going to play again, or is he redshirting again? I mean, look, we got to get him back out there. He's
going to play.
What would it be? Yeah, I mean, is there any way that he can get another year of eligibility? I don't even know.
Yes, he can. No, they've already said he can have next year if he wants it. And he said, no, I'm going to the NFL.
Okay, well, he might be back next year. I'm not gonna roll my eyes up at the possibility of that. But I think that the Arizona thing is it's easy to be enthralled by Noah Fafita and T-Mac. And I think a lot of people got caught up in that trap when they played Kansas State last Friday night. We watched that game and they just weren't very competitive after the first few drives that they had. And, I view Utah as a team that, I love your term, what they do travels, and they're not going very far. So I actually am not going to put my foot in the bear trap here. And I think it's very tempting too, to be like, this is the Big 12. It's going to get crazy. It's going to go off the rails. Teams are going to lose the teams that they shouldn't. 11.5. Like, I understand the reasoning, but I think that Utah is going to be able to handle them pretty physically. And I think they will probably win this game by 14-ish points.
I'm going to stick my foot in the bear down trap. Give me Arizona to cover.
Yeah. I've seen a lot of people stick their feet in the bear down trap over the years, bud. Trust me.
I know. Very interesting game coming up. Louisville at Notre Dame. Notre Dame's a 4.5-point favorite in this game. They played this game last year. Remember, Louisville crushed Notre Dame in Louisville. Obviously, the teams are very different now. 2 new starting quarterbacks, different scenario. But Ari, I go back to a text I sent you in the first half of the Notre Dame Miami Ohio game when Notre Dame was really struggling to get on the board against Miami Ohio. I said, Notre Dame's going to win this game. They are not running the table. And that was the Miami of Ohio game. I don't think Notre Dame's going to win this game. I think Louisville's going to come in there and beat them.
Do you know what I was doing when you sent me that text? I was driving from Oklahoma City to Norman. I was not tracking the scores. And when you sent it to me, I looked at the score, and I think they were losing 3-0 in the second quarter.
They were, yes.
And I just looked up in the sky, and I was just like, you've got to be kidding me. Like, does Notre Dame only exist on earth to embarrass me? Is that like what we're doing here? Like,
well, and I can't, like, how can they, what can they do differently to motivate the players for games like that? Because they're clearly bad at that. They're clearly bad at motivating them for games where the opponent is not considered that good. Because they come out fine in the games that they're supposed to play somebody good. So, like, I'm not worried about Notre Dame just laying an egg in this game. I'm just worried about Louisville being better than them.
Yeah. Well, that's been the whole thing, right? Like, Notre Dame can't go undefeated. They can't run the table because Louisville's on the schedule. And then here we are, like I said, as Notre Dame's a 4.5-point favorite at home. Like, this is going to be a monumental test for Notre Dame in the sense of, like, are you going to have a pulse this year, or are you just going to lie down and lose to Louisville and have 2 losses in the first 5 weeks of the season? I am still worried about Notre Dame's offensive line. They lost 2 of their most important pieces on there, and they're still trying to figure out how to block for Riley Leonard. But, like, Notre Dame typically, and I know this wasn't the case last year, but in big games, plays pretty well. They did a really good job of playing against A&M. And, last year, for the most part, I think that, they're losing the games they shouldn't lose.
Played up against Ohio State. Yeah, I got you.
Yeah, they've had Ohio State on the ropes.
Game was a body blow game because they'd played Ohio State and they played the really tough game against Duke that they'd won. And then they got to Louisville and it was just like out of gas.
And so I know I'm wearing a white hoodie right now, and I may or may not look like a marshmallow, but I'm not soft, dude. You think I'm going to pick against Notre Dame in this spot after what I've been talking all year? It's not even in my. I would rather lose picking Notre Dame than be right picking Louisville. Like, that's where I'm at with this. Like, there's no chance in hell that I'm picking against Notre Dame to win this football game by more than 4.5. None. So
Notre Dame lost to Northern Illinois on a block kick. Now, granted, that was a 62-yard try, so obviously you are going with a very low angle to try to get some distance there. Louisville beat Georgia Tech by blocking a field goal, returning it for a touchdown. Now they probably would have beaten them anyway, but that sealed it. That turned the game, sealed it, ended any chance Georgia Tech had of winning. I like Louisville here. I'm tempted to go Louisville money line, but let me just make it easy on myself, and I'll take the points.
Well, guess what, buddy? I don't care if they cover the spread. If Notre Dame gets a win here, we're back in business, baby. We're back on the Polar Express. I don't know what that means.
All right, well, I will take your word for it. I don't trust them. I will not, like, you get put on old takes exposed or freezing cold takes and double down.
I don't watch Batman. I don't watch Batman, but once he goes, "You're in the darkness, but I was born in it." Like I'm born in the freezing cold takes.
Yeah, you're talking about Bane.
What did he say?
You adopted the darkness. I was born in it, brother.
I was born in it, brother. yeah. Hey, what happens if you take off your mask, Andy? It'll be very painful for you.
Well, I'm leaving it on. I'm breathing the Louisville fumes right now because I don't trust Notre Dame, and they're going to have to earn my trust. This week could be a way to do that by making me look stupid, but they are going to have to earn my trust. Ari, we now move to the game that everybody's been waiting for. The Georgia Bulldogs head to Tuscaloosa. Georgia, a 2.5-point road favorite against the Crimson Tide. Who you got?
You know what, Andy? You know what? I'm going to make this quick. I'm going to make this painless. I'm going Bama, and I'm going Bama to win the game. I have been saying all year, and people have been mad at me, but Georgia's lack of offensive explosiveness, the skill position player, scares the ever-loving crap out of me. And playing against a team that has guys that will score on the road against the offensive coach who has proven that he always had, something up his sleeve. I don't know that I like Georgia to win the football game. And I felt this way for 2 weeks. But I know we had a video about it on Sunday. I know we talked it through. But I'm not going to go against my gut here. Like, my gut has been saying Alabama since the start of the season. My gut changed a little bit after the Clemson game, but watching Georgia play the Kentucky team, I thought that was more of an exposure of ailments on their team than it was just a sleepwalking game. Not that it should have been that close, but I think that you can see a route to beating this football team, and I think Alabama just has to hope that they didn't figure something out in the last 2 weeks, but I like Alabama in the game.
Well, let's workshop this. I'm gonna give you a scenario that I envision if Georgia wins this game. This is why, and then see if it alters your thinking at all. So before I give my pick, Tate Ratledge, Georgia's best offensive lineman, got hurt in the Kentucky game. They had to shuffle some things around. Micah Morris, the guy who's replacing Tate Ratledge, has played some, but that group had not played together, really. They've had 2 weeks now to practice together. I think that makes a difference.
Mm-hmm.
Michael Williams didn't play against Kentucky. We don't know where he's at for this game. He had an ankle sprain early, I believe, in the Clemson game.
But he's really good. Yeah.
He's, game record.
Yep.
So he may play in this game. That potentially makes a difference. Now, I will say, Caden Proctor had a really good game against Georgia in the SEC championship game. Probably the best game Caden Proctor played all of last season for Alabama. So maybe not. Maybe that doesn't matter. But I think it matters. I think it will matter if he plays. I think we saw Wisconsin run the ball effectively against Alabama. I think Georgia can run the ball effectively against Alabama too, because Georgia's got a better offensive line and better backs than Wisconsin. Now, I am with you in that I don't know who the downfield threats are for Georgia. Is it is it Dominic Lovett? Is it Colby Young? Is it, can you get Ben Urosic involved doing some things that make him, versatile? Is it Oscar Delp? We have not seen that yet. Alabama's not typically the kind of defense you kind of break out against. So that concerns me. But if Georgia can control the ball on the ground and Georgia's defense can make Jalen Milroe look more average, which I do think is possible. I think Wisconsin's defense made Jalen Milroe look like Superman. I think there's a chance that you can force Jalen Milroe into some mistakes with a better defense. Georgia is that better defense. So again, probably would help if Michael Williams plays. So does any of that change your confidence? Because you are picking Alabama with what I feel like is a very high level of confidence.
It's really hard to be confident, really. Like, that was kind of a facade, picking against Georgia to win a football game. Like, what are we talking about here? Like, you're like, hey, let me try to change your mind. Oh, by the way, two of the best players in college football one got injured and one didn't play against Kentucky, and they have time to practice, but then like Michael Williams is coming back. Of course that scares me. The guy's going to be a game record in the NFL next year. Like, yes, I'm scared. I'm absolutely scared. I don't know. I don't know, Andy. On the road, they're at home. They're catching 2.5. I think that they'll be able to score on this team, and I just don't know if we're going to have, or a Georgia offensive flop is on the table here. Like, I don't know if a Alabama offensive flop is on the table here.
Well, I hope I was convincing, because I was playing devil's advocate, because I agree with you. I think Alabama's going to win this game.
Okay. Woo. Whew.
Yeah.
So at least if we get roasted, we'll do it together. But, my gut has been with Alabama since the beginning of the year, man.
Yeah. I've watched enough Georgia that, look, you're never going to dismiss Georgia out of hand, no matter the opponent. So it's entirely possible that somebody gets unlocked at Georgia, like one of the receivers or one of the tight ends, like they figure out, oh, okay, this is how this needs to work. And then all of a sudden there's nothing you can do. But I think Alabama's good enough to keep the score down in this game. And Alabama's more dynamic. Producer River is asking, do we want to take the points, or do we dare go money line on this?
Money line.
Agreed. Money line on Alabama. I can't wait for this game. It's gonna be like, this is a night game. Like, our show's right after this game. It's gonna be amazing.
We got the appetizer on Friday night, and we're bookended by 24 hours of just amazing football. We got Miami on Friday night, then we get this game at night. And I'm going to have the screens. I'm going to be home this weekend, which is going to be weird. It'll be my first time this year, like, watching games from home. But I'm really, really looking forward to it.
David in the chat, y'all about to look so damn stupid.
It happens.
Well, this is like, we just both picked against Georgia. This is like when we both picked against Alabama in the 2021 SEC championship game. We made it into the hype video, and then Alabama killed Georgia. So, yeah. Oh, Jonathan in the chat, Kirby is 9-1 after a bye and 27-3 with more than a week to prepare. Well, they don't play Alabama after all those buys. That's the difference. This is not just any opponent. And I say that on both sides. Like, for those of you who agree with us that we think Alabama's going to win, this is Georgia. This isn't just any opponent. We can very, very easily be wrong here.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But Lori's right. Lori's the one person everybody can agree with. T-Town will be lit. Tuscaloosa is going to be unbelievable. I want your tweets and videos from Innisfree and all of those other places on Friday night. Like, I just want to see what it looks like. I'm an old guy. I can't do that. I can't handle that anymore. But send it to me. Let me live vicariously through you. I want to soak it in.
Whew. Cannot wait.
It's going to be so good. All right, tomorrow we have a very interesting quarterback conversation. We started to have it today, but it needs time to breathe. How do you handle it?
And I can't wait to read your column about it. Yeah,
I am about to finish that. So you can read that later today at On3. And then tomorrow we will talk about what happens when you got a young QB and an old QB. It's not an exorcism. Sometimes you got to make a choice. That's not always going to work out. We'll talk about all of that tomorrow.